Well, hey there, kiddos, and welcome to your video on point-slope form. It's just another equation that we can use to write linear functions. So we've already learned slope-intercept, which looks like this, if you'll remember, is y equals mx plus b. And now we're going to talk about point-slope. Now here is the thing. The names of these equations tell you when the best time to use them will be. Slope-intercept form, the best time to use it is when you know a slope and the intercept. That's the best time to use slope-intercept form. That, or if you want to use your calculator. Point-slope form we use whenever we have a point and the slope. So the name tells you what goes in it. So point-slope form looks like this. Looks like this: y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. And in this equation, just like in slope-intercept form, this y and this x, the ones without the little subscripts, are just variables. They're going to stay y and x. The y and the x with the subscript, the y1 and the x1, those are where we're going to plug in our point. These are numbers because they have numbers on them. That's where we're going to plug our numbers in. And then, of course, m is our slope. So let's practice. Number 1 here says to write an equation that represents a line having a slope of 2 that passes through the point 7, 2. Write your equation in point-slope form. Well, point-slope, here it is. And you should also notice that we were given a slope and a point. That should give away that you should probably start with point-slope form. So we're going to start in point-slope form, and I told you that this y stays a y, and then I have to do the y coordinate of my point. Well, here's my point, and the y coordinate is 2, so I have y minus 2 is equal to the slope, which was 2, times this x stays an x, and then the x coordinate of my point is 7, so x minus 7. That is that equation in point-slope form. I plugged in my point, so here's my y value, here's my x value, and there's my slope. That's all there is to it. Done. Now question 2 says to use that point-slope equation for number 1 to solve for y and transform this from point-slope into slope-intercept. So basically we want to make this into slope-intercept form. So we're going to start with the equation we had. Y minus 2 is equal to 2 times x minus 7, and if I want to get this y by itself, the first thing that needs to happen is these parentheses have to disappear. So I'm going to distribute my 2, so I get y minus 2 is equal to 2x, that's what that is, minus 14. So now all I need to do to get this y right here all by itself so that this is slope-intercept form is get rid of this 2. So I'm going to add 2 to both sides. And when I do that, I get that my final equation is y equals 2x, and then negative 14 plus 2 becomes negative 12. So there is that equation in slope-intercept form. And so if you want to know, the slope of the line is 2, the y-intercept of that line is negative 12. So I'm skipping all the way down to number 5, just because I felt like 3 and 4 were pretty redundant. And then so number 5, write an equation in point-slope form of a line having a slope of 3 over 2 that passes through the point negative 4, 1. So I have to go to my point-slope form, so it's y minus the y coordinate, which is 1, is equal to the slope times x minus the x coordinate. But in this case, my x coordinate is negative, and so when I do minus a negative 4, these two minus signs cancel each other out and make a plus, so this really becomes y minus 1 is equal to 3 over 2 times x plus 4. Because of that minus sign, the two minuses went together and they made a plus sign. So this is what it would look like in point slope. If you write this and you have the minus, the negative, it's not incorrect, but just remember that your teacher hates double signs, and on no star test ever will you see double signs. They will convert that to a plus. So you just need to make that jump. So now number 6 and number 7. Number 6 says to write an equation in slope-intercept form. So here's the form. They want it in y equals mx plus b of a line having undefined slope that passes through the point 5, negative 3. Now I don't feel like I have spent a lot of time drilling into you undefined slope and zero slope, so I want to talk about it for just a minute. There are 2 acronyms that I want you to learn. And so I'm going to put a blank page in here. You would need to squeeze this in onto your paper anywhere you can. But there are 2 acronyms I want you to learn. The first one is HOI, and the second one is VUX. That's a U. And here's what they stand for. In HOI, it stands for a horizontal line, which is hard to write vertically, by the way. A horizontal line has 0 slope and the equation is always y equals. And so it will just be y equals whatever the number is that y equals. The VUX stands for vertical line, which is also hard to write vertically, by the way. But a vertical line has what we call undefined slope, because it goes up and down, and we don't know whether it goes up or whether it goes down. And if we were to try to ski on something that went straight up and down, gravity would just take over and pull us directly to the ground, and it would be no fun. Okay, so it's undefined. And then vertical lines have undefined slope, and then their equations are always written as x equals whatever the number happens to be for x. So when you see these kinds of questions and they say write an equation of a line that has undefined slope, you should automatically be like, oh, that's going to be vertical. It means it's going to be x equals. So you need to remember this HOI and this VUX. And the same thing with writing an equation of something with 0 slope. You should automatically be like HOI, that's horizontal, y equals. So let's go back to our problem now. We want an equation in slope-intercept form of a line that has undefined slope that passes through the point 5, -3. I don't really know why this graph is here. It's not really going to help you with this problem at all, because undefined slope, if you'll remember, is VUX, which means it's going to be a vertical line that goes through the point 5, -3. So if you wanted to plot that point, you could. And since it's a vertical line, that means the equation is just going to be x equals whatever the x value of the point happens to be. Well, the x value of that point happens to be 5, so the equation is just x equals 5. If you wanted to draw the vertical line, more power to you. There it is. It passes through that point. But to be undefined, it has to be vertical, so the equation must be x equals. And since they gave me a point, I knew what x equaled. So if you look at number 7 says to write an equation in slope-intercept form of a line having a slope of 0 that passes through the point -3, 4. Well, since this has a slope of 0, I should know that that is a HOI, because it has 0 slope, so I know that's a horizontal line, and so the equation has to be y equals, and if I look at my point here, y equals 4, so the equation of my line is just y equals 4, because that's what y equals there. So I have this point, I'll use a different color, right here, -3, 4, and I have a horizontal line that passes through there just like that. And everywhere on that line, y equals 4, so my equation is just y equals 4. But the thing that I need you to remember, and I need you to try and commit it to memory, is the HOI and the VUX. HOI means horizontal lines have 0 slope and their equations are y equals. And then VUX is vertical lines have undefined slope and their equations are x equals. These should be gimme questions. You see a thing about undefined slope, it should just be x equals, done. If you see something about 0 slope, it should be y equals and done. These should be gimme questions, so I want you to commit to memory the HOI and the VUX and what they stand for. So numbers 8 and 9 says, number 8 says write an equation in point slope form, so we're going to do that y minus y1 form that represents the line in the graph below. Well, the first thing I need to have is a point. Well, I have 2 of them, and when I go to write my equation, it won't matter which one I use. We'll just pick, and that'll be the one we use. The other thing I need is a slope. Well, they didn't give me a slope, but from this graph, they've even marked 2 pretty points for me. I can do my rise over my run, and I can count my slope. Well, it looks like my slope goes up 2 and over 5, so my slope is 2/5. Now we're going to pick a point. I want to use this one right here, the 0, -5. That's the y-intercept, and it'll make this really easy. So in point slope form, it's y minus my y-coordinate, and the y-coordinate is -5. So if you'll remember, that makes this plus, because I will end up doing minus a negative. So it makes it a plus sign. And then that is equal to my slope, which is 2/5, times x minus the x-coordinate of my point, which is 0. So that's the equation in point slope form. You're done. Finished. Okay, I just had to find the slope. So number 9 here says, which linear equation represents a line that passes through the point 3, 5 and has a y-intercept of -1? Well, they don't give us a whole lot of information here. I have 2 points actually. I have a 0.35 and I have the y-intercept. Well, if you remember, the y-intercept is always 0, comma the number, so it's at 0, -1. And I can use that to find my slope. But since I know that the y-intercept is -1, I can look at my answer choices and cross off the ones that don't have the right y-intercept. Well, A has a y-intercept of +2, so that's not going to be it. B has a y-intercept of -1, so it could be this one. C has a y-intercept of +8, so it's not that one. And D has a y-intercept also of -1, so it could be this one. So now what I have to do is figure out what the slope is. You can use the formula because you have 2 points, or you can make a table and we can do change in y over change in x. So I have 3, 5 and 0, -1. And so I have to find my change in y over my change in x. And so my change here from 5 to -1 is going to be a -6 because it's getting smaller. And my change from 3 to 0 is a -3. And so if I write that as a slope, it's -6 over -3, which simplifies to +2. This is the equation that has the correct slope and y-intercept. This one, the slope is incorrect. So if you were given a question like that, remember y-intercept is a point, so go ahead and write it as the ordered pair, then use that to find your slope so that you can write your equation. So one last one, a repair person charges $25 per hour plus an initial service charge call. I'm having trouble talking. The bill for 3 hours was $105. In the problem, we want to know what is the slope. Well, the slope is the thing that's happening per hour. Well, that's $25. So my slope is 25. Then it says, what information would be a point on the equation of this situation? Well, they tell me right here the bill for 3 hours was $105. Well, that means that my point is going to be 3 and 105 because for 3 hours it's $105. So what does it represent? It represents 3 hours is $105. So now we want to write an equation in point slope form for this situation. So I have a point, I have a slope, so I'm going to do y minus the y coordinate, which is 105, is equal to the slope times x minus the x coordinate, which is 3. So there's point slope form. Now D asks for the initial service call charge, and I don't happen to know what that is right now. So there's 2 ways I can do this. Number one, I know that it's $25 per hour. And so for 3 hours, I know the total. I can do 25 times 3 and then subtract that from the total to get what was left over, because that would, the 25 times 3 would just give me how much it was for the 3 hours. What is remaining would be my service charge. The other way to do this is to solve this equation for y and then take a look at what there is. It doesn't matter to me, but I'm going to solve this for y because I think it's good practice for you. So remember, to solve for y, we have to distribute first, so I end up with y minus 105 is equal to 25x minus 75. Now, I want to get y by itself, so I'm going to have to add 105 to both sides, and when I do that, I'm going to get y is equal to 25x, and so then I have to do negative 75 because of that minus sign, plus 105, which is 30. So I have 25x plus 30. So that is my equation in slope-intercept form, and we see that the 25 is the slope, which means the 30 is going to be my service charge. So now part E says, what's the bill for 7 hours? Well, the bill for 7 hours, I'm just going to plug it into here. Y is equal to 25 times 7 plus 30. I'm going to pick up my calculator, and I'm going to go 25 times 7 plus 30. And I get that it's 205. So the bill for 7 hours is $205. So that is point slope form. You have a point, you have a slope, you plug it in, and if you pay attention to what is being asked for in the question, what form do they want your equation in? Right now it will be one of 2 things. It will either say point slope or it will say slope intercept. Give me the form that it asks for and nothing more. If it just says point slope form, call it a day and say I'm done. If it asks for slope intercept, you will probably have to start with point slope and then rewrite it like we did from C to D in this question number 10. So we'll practice this tomorrow when you guys come to class. I'll see you then. Have a good rest of your day.